If you were raised on blame, it is a habit for you to reach for this excuse whenever you wish to explain why something is not working in your life. You can, for instance, blame lack of prosperity on a lot of externals: your culture, the stock market, politicians, your parents, lady luck, the greed of others. You can blame illness on heredity and the flu season and bad luck or the environment. Your sour relationships can be blamed on your partners, their inability to love you, your upbringing, or your parents. Your personality can be blamed on your parents, or your genes, or your childhood, or your siblings, or your birth order. And your physical appearance can be the fault of genetics, the food manufacturers, advertisers, or the polluted environment. This is potentially an endless list. The alternative to blame is self-responsibility, becoming an inner-directed person. You may not have been taught to consider taking responsibility for the events of your life. But if you are unwilling to discontinue the blame game, you will be unable to initiate your sacred quest. When you are inclined to think that someone else is responsible for your circumstances, take an instant to say a prayer of thanks for the lesson. The lesson is to become aware that you are the one who is experiencing the feeling. You can do this the instant that you recognize yourself playing the blame game. Feel thankful toward those you've let anger you. Give inner thanks for the reminder that the feeling you are experiencing is inside you, not outside you. Say to yourself, I do not want to be right. I want to know the truth. I want my higher self to rule. No one is to blame for how I am feeling. It is my feeling, and I respect that. These kinds of affirmations will lead you to self-reliance and to the way of the sacred quest. Your spiritual soul will then become the guiding light for the remainder of your time in the now here. Another belief that you have to rid yourself of is that idealism can't coexist with realism. Don't be such a dreamer. Be realistic. Forget about your inner vision. Look around you at what is happening. This is what is real. Have you heard similar pronouncements often in your life? If so, you probably developed an attitude about what was possible and what was impossible. If the ideals that attracted you were labeled impossible, you probably sacrificed them for a way of viewing your world that was based on what others determined was realistic. Discarding that old belief about reality can be a major task on the path of the sacred quest. Are you ready to reconsider your view of reality? Perhaps William Blake's statement will inspire you. He said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. Can you imagine your reality in that way? Everything infinite? When your perception is expanded, nothing is real and nothing is imagined. All there is perception. When you cultivate this awareness, your reality is no longer defined by the physical world. At the tiniest quantum level, time is not a reality. Particles can be in more than one place at the same time, and they appear and disappear according to how we observe them and what measuring devices we use. All of this constitutes a new reality. Always remember, we are made of the very same energy. If you want a richer experience of your life, abandon the idea that your reality is only what your senses report. Your inner world and all of the energy of your higher awareness creates a reality very different from that which you've been taught. In this reality, your higher spirit, the loving presence within you, is dominant. In this world, you rely on something quite different than the ordinary reality. Choosing the way of the sacred quest means you will learn to rely on this new reality. Shift back to being the idealist who had inner inklings about the world of spirit. That idealist within you will happily do the following, according to Buddha. Rely on the message of the teacher, not on his personality. Rely on the meaning, not just on the words. Rely on the real meaning, not on the provisional one. Rely on your wisdom mind, not on your ordinary judgmental mind. Here are some suggestions for releasing realism and welcoming idealism. Trust your intuition. You will define your own reality from now on, and your definition will be based on your inner wisdom. There are no limits within, and within is where you are going from now on for your direction. Make a list of all the things you believed in before you were told they were impossible. Writing and drawing about those early beliefs will help to re-energize them. Practice experimenting with your new reality. Keep a vision of what it is that you would like to have occur, or someone you would want to call you. Anything that is important to you. Meditate on it, manifesting into your own life. Keep track of all the little things that lead up to bringing it about. After a while, you will notice that your reality has become one in which you play a role as co-creator. As a child, you were aware of a second aspect of your being. Here I am calling that your double, or your ethereal body. As you grew older, you lost touch with this ethereal energy body. This does not mean that it is unavailable to you. Your physical body is what you've come to believe is who you are. Yet this body, in and of itself, is neutral. Your body, in and of itself, can bring you neither peace nor turmoil. It is almost impossible to make contact with your higher self when you only believe in your false self and the material world. Somewhere within you, you are aware that all of the material world is energy. This energy appears solid from the perspective of your eyes, your perceptual equipment. A closer look at the physical world reveals a dance of particles in endless voids of empty space. A closer look at those particles reveals that they are involved in another, tinier dance of more particles in a field of emptiness ad infinitum until there is only energy and no particles. This is our reality. But we've been persuaded that what we see with the limitations of our eyes is the only reality there is. Your body is a part of that perceptual system you have been conditioned to accept. Your task is to dissolve the barrier that separates these two aspects of your being. When you do this, you leap into the unimaginable. Here are some suggestions for releasing your belief in physical exclusivity. Open yourself to the possibility of other dimensions of reality being available to you. Affirm to yourself that this is all a possibility. Very few people believed in the existence of microscopic life before the invention of the microscope. There were zillions of tiny creatures swimming around in their own pool of reality, independent of anyone's opinion about them. They exist now in your skin, your eyes, your fingernails, and your hair. All of those things that you sense to be solid are alive with invisible activity. Apply the same awareness to this notion. You can't see it, but you are an energy body and a physical body. Your double would like to introduce itself to you. Our education emphasizes believing in sensory experiences. Such experiences seem to tell us that we are separate, unique, special, and disconnected from each other. Very few of us learn that there is some kind of unity. The truth is that everything is linked, including you, to all other beings. Discard the belief that you are separate from everyone else. You will acquire a reverence for everyone that will turn into love. When we lose our sense of us versus them and know that we are all us, then we have a win-win relationship with life. Practice letting go of your ego's need to be separate from others. Begin viewing yourself as a member of the human family called us. Share your toys with others, especially neighbors and even strangers, as if they were a part of your family. As the English proverb says, the hand that gives, gathers. Treat everyone as if they are part of the tribe you love belonging to. Don't mentally note their differences. Carry an inner determination to see others as just as much a part of you on a spiritual level as is your child or your spouse. Create an affirmation expressing the idea that you are my brother, my sister. You are a part of my us. There are no more thems in my life. You have been taught that there are some bad people in the world who are best ignored. I'm suggesting the contrary. Everyone who comes into your life in any capacity is valuable. The petty tyrants in your life are just as divine as those who provide you with encouragement and support. Emerson put this important lesson like this: the whole course of things goes to teach us faith. The whole course. This means everything that comes your way. Perhaps the single most significant person in my life, the one person who made the greatest difference for me and my own spiritual development, is a person who by all accounts was a petty tyrant. This man was my father. He abandoned his family, spent time in prison as a petty criminal, and was abusive toward his wife. At the age of 49, he died from excessive use of alcohol. I have no memory of him. My knowledge of him is based on what I heard and later discovered to be true when I investigated his life. Yet this petty, tyrannical con man was the main character leading to my transformation. I wrote about forgiving my father, and you'll see it when you believe it. I discarded the hatred and the bitterness that I had carried with me for a lifetime. A single act of forgiveness and letting go opened the way to my sacred quest and the writing, speaking, and living of the miracles I write about. I learned what I had to transcend. When I now occasionally slip into some of the behaviors that I know destroyed his life, I remind myself that this is not my path. This is not the kind of father I wish to be. This is not the kind of husband I wish to be. It is his example that helps me get myself back to the path that I know is my spiritual destiny. Be thankful for those petty tyrants. They are there for a very important reason. Ignoring them guarantees that more of them will appear in different bodies later on in your life. Prayers of thankfulness are wonderful affirmations of this truth. The experience of being deserted by a spouse might teach you to be independent. This type of situation may introduce you to the loving presence within. Perhaps you will learn the difference between aloneness and loneliness and decide to love the person you are alone with. The alcoholic years can teach us that we are greater than any substance. We might learn to be thankful for those drunken teachers and consider them instructors from God. Even physical abuse may have a powerful lesson in it. We may discover that we are more than a body. It's possible for us to know that no one can reach our inner self with their blows. Make a list of all the people you have written out of your life as evil or scumbags. Write down everything that their presence taught you. Have you learned to not repeat victim behaviors? Reconsider that so-called scumbag's value to your life. You could not have learned the lesson without that person. The evidence for this is that you obviously needed to bring that person into your life because you did. Look for the fullness of God in everyone. Realize that in some unfathomable way, the fullness is operating even if you cannot see it. Self-flattering inner dialogue is generally ego chatter, which can make you lose your way. Inner dialogue about your purpose in life will keep you on the path. Be silent. When you are unsure about whether to tell the truth or distort because you feel that the truth will be more painful than it is worth, then do and say nothing. You are not obliged to anyone to reveal every detail of your life. You have the right to remain silent and learn your lesson in that silence. Develop a personal truth that is unassailable from outside forces. Simply declare your own agreement to practice truth and to be independent of the good opinion of others. Resist the need to boast and to talk about yourself. Strive to be interested rather than interesting. This is the way of the higher self. Become the listener, the one who is interested in the accomplishments and activities of others, and you will not need to boast and to distort your personal storyline. If you find yourself exaggerating, stop. Just stop and verbally correct yourself. You don't need to explain that you are breaking your habit of exaggeration. Just correct the statement. Write your own personal honor code. In your words, describe your intention to make truth the way of your thoughts and actions by suspending your need to deceive yourself and others. Then internalize your code of honor by reading or reciting it to yourself on some regular basis. You will eventually radiate your inner spirituality, and you will have discovered a blissful way of being in this physical plane. Know that being credited is unimportant. Remind yourself that when you're fulfilling your life's mission, credit and accolades are unimportant. The irony here is that the more you seek approval, the less you receive. No one really approves of an approval seeker. Letting go of the need for approval leaves you open to embrace the truth. The Sufi poet Rumi's words sum up this subject of truth versus deception. When you eventually see through the veils to how things really are, you will keep saying again and again, "This is certainly not like we thought it was." It will be more than you ever might have imagined when your ego was leading you away from the way of your sacred self. You may believe that the opposite of love is hate. I do not see these two emotions as opposites. In fact, love and hate are often closely aligned. To me, the opposite of love is fear. When you have fear, you do not have love. Ego uses fear as a way to keep authentic love out of your life. When love is not present in your life, you have succumbed to ego and allowed fear in where love could be. You have allowed ego to replace God. Learning to experience authentic love means abandoning ego's insistence that you have much to fear and that you are in an unfriendly world. This begins with an assessment of your reluctance to embrace love. If you are not experiencing love in your life right now, it is because you are, in some way, afraid. You need to examine your fears with honesty and with love. When you do, you will transform your fears into love. You will open up a space within you that can only be occupied by love. In this space you are on purpose, walking the way of the sacred self. But first, you must see how you substitute fear for love. Your ego steadfastly promotes fear because it fears authentic love itself. This false self helps you convince yourself that you are in some way incomplete. That is the source of all fear. Afraid of having your emptiness, your incompleteness exposed, you expend a lot of energy creating a false image of happiness. The fear about exposing the emptiness keeps you seeking relationships that ego tells you will satisfy the longing within you. What happens is that you enter a relationship starved for the love that is your higher self. Your inner hunger is masked, pretending to be something else. No wonder so many people repeatedly think they have found love and repeatedly declare they've lost it. How different it is when you can notice the inner emptiness and think, what's not to like? This longing is part of being human and knowing love. Then you will let ego know that fear is not your choice. Love is your choice. Just imagine how our system might be if people knew they were already complete. What would you need to purchase? What would you need to have to own? Who would you have to impress? Who would you need to have on your arm? The answers give you an idea of how much we rely on the fear that we are incomplete and unacceptable as we are, and how unaware we are of our divine connection. The fear that is a substitute for love is simply a fear of being unacceptable. Virtually all fears can be traced directly back to self-esteem. If you love yourself, you will be able to transform your fears with love rather than allow them to direct your life. If you have an inner feeling of being complete and whole, knowing the loving presence that is there, then fear becomes a loving invitation to know more or to change something in your life. Fear will no longer threaten you as it did when you were unacquainted with your higher self.